Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Angie, Dr. Angie White. Looking forward to our conversation today, Angie.
Okay, yep, sure am.
Yeah, cool. So you could be forgiven, listener, for thinking that Angie is in the UK. She is from the UK, but she's you're in Texas. You're in San Antonio. How long have you
I
been in
am.
on the wrong side of the pond?
Oh, ouch. 2007, first into Houston and then 2012 into San Antonio. It's a beautiful place to live, it must be said, but I travel home every 2 to 3 years, so I don't miss it too much.
No, cool. And I looked, was having a look at your bio. You used to work at Chosen with Jenny, right? Right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we interviewed Jenny a while ago for the podcast. Great lady.
Okay, yeah, awesome. And Chosen do great work.
Yeah. So Angie in San Antonio, she leads CASA in San Antonio. She is you were fostered and then
Yeah.
adopted. So this clearly has a big place in your heart, right?
Yeah, like I love what I do. So we are Child Advocate San Antonio, CASA, and support children with advocates. When the kids come into the foster system, that we provide them with volunteer advocates to help them navigate through that and make sure the children are supported. So yeah, it means the world to me.
Yeah. So what does thriving adoptees mean to you?
I think, I'm very interested in self-actualization of people. How do we be all the things we can be regardless of what's happened to us? So, and I really believe that's a choice we make. So as you mentioned, I was a foster kid. I was legally adopted at 7, but my adoptive mother was not particularly a nice lady either. And I've recently, in the last few years, found out some things that changed my entire outlook really on my early childhood. And my adoptive mother, particularly, made sure to feel that, make me feel that I was less than. Um, and you got to make a choice. You either accept that that is who you are, or you can make choices in life that change your belief. And I really think to be a thriving adopted person, being adopted or fostered is not a definition of who we are as humans. It's a
Yeah,
definition of what other adults around us were put in a situation they had to do, or in some cases wanted to do, but that doesn't define who we are.
yeah. Here, 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 here. So what do you mean by self-actualization? That's the Maslow thing, right? At the top
Yeah,
of the pyramid?
the big word, right? Um, what I mean by that, and I wrote about it when I was doing my doctorate. So what I mean by that is, what is it as every individual, what is it that means that you feel that when you come to the end of your life, you've kind of skidded into your grave sideways, kind of thing, what is it that would light you up? And so you have the self-belief and faith in yourself to do anything you would choose to do. And what people choose to do is nothing to do with me. But how do we get people into and people who've had hard backgrounds, particularly, into a state of mind where they have deep and fundamental self-belief. And when you have that, you can do anything.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Deep and fundamental self-belief.
Yeah, it's a rock.
It's a
You will
rock.
not be swayed. People can stand on it and know they are worth every bit as much as anybody else. What happened to them as children does not make them less than.
Yeah. And that's a seeing thing, right? Is it a seeing thing?
Uh, Not sure what you mean by that, I don't think.
Well, seeing that we are
Oh,
that
I see what
rock.
you mean. Yeah, yeah, accepting that we as individuals, when you look, you are not less than because your mother didn't want you. Is the phrase I hear a lot from people I talk to. And that was my belief until I actually met my biological mother recently again. Um, it doesn't frame where you start, doesn't define where you finish. It's all in that. So how do we get to a point as, children with hard backgrounds, hard stories, that we know we're okay? And by being okay, then we don't get stuck and doubt that we can't do the next thing. We just have to believe we can.
Yeah.
And that really is a choice to make. It's a hard choice, it's not easy. We don't want to live as victims. We want to live as like
Yeah.
cool people who are everything we can be.
Yeah. And yet trauma can be a
Yeah.
pair of glasses that we wear, right?
Yeah, they can. And if you can take those glasses off or start to really think about the decisions you make are always framed through that bias of a trauma lens in all the ways that we know make sense. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way.
Yeah.
That's a great
Was there a
question.
time that you realized you had glasses on?
Yeah, I think, yeah, coming into my, I guess, early 30s, no, mid 30s, early 40s, I got divorced, remarried, we moved to the States. All those things happened. And I didn't know if I could survive the move. I didn't know, I was running a business in the UK. I had my friend group were there, everybody was there. My parents, my adopted parents were both deceased at that time. Um, and the move here really made me, for the first time, kind of evaluate what I was capable of. And then I have lots of mentors along the way. Lean into people who will help you, ask for help. I mean, that's the other thing we're not good at as humans generally. So I did a lot of that, and then some leadership and coaching work and therapy work, and started bit by bit to peel all that away. But I think really it was as recently as 2016. There's a lady called Tracy Goss. She's passed away now. She wrote a book on transformational leadership, and I was on a course with her in New York. And she said, "So tell me a story." And there's like 20 people in the room who I don't really know. And, I go into, well, my mother gave me up and I was all over the place when I was little, which I now know is not true, but we'll get to that later. And she looked at me and was just like, "So what?" I'm sorry. Did you just write my entire life off, you evil woman? You know? And and the thing was, so what? What does that say about you? What does that say about what's next for you? Why does their opinion stop you being who you can be? So that was December 2016. In January 2017, I went back to school and did my master's, and then a year later did my PhD. And I think for me, it was like, you know what? She's bloody right. Why am I living defined by these people, any other people really, but particularly fundamental people in your formative years? And I'm living in this belief system of definition about myself. I don't have to do that.
Was the belief borrowed from your adoptive mother then?
It was borrowed from the stories that my adopted mother had told me about my biological family and about when I was little, like pre-4, what happened to me. Um, and as it turns out, those stories were not true either. And I literally only found that out in September 2025.
Yeah.
So recently.
Yeah. So when I get around this area, I think about validation and invalidation, right?
Right,
So coach validation feels nice. Invalidation can be a bit of a shocker. So when
right.
Tracy Goss said, "So what?" she was kind of invalidating where you were at, right?
Yeah, I was like, you class A beep, beep, beep. What the hell did you just say to me? No, you've been in this like vulnerable state with these people you don't know, pouring out your heart kind of thing. And she was like, and like literally shrug of the shoulders. So what? And difference does that make to you?
Yeah,
Like, well, damn. But you know what? She was right. She was right. And
yeah,
I think sometimes we need, a person outside of our, close remit life that doesn't want to hurt us or, to say something that you need to hear.
yeah.
So for everybody out there, I'm going to be the class A beep beep. So what? So what? It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't make you what's inside of you, and it it doesn't have to limit you. And that's
Yeah,
all the way back to self-actualization. There's no limits to who we can be.
yeah. So, self-actualization, self-realization, are they the same thing?
Slightly different. I think you have to realize it before you can actualize it. I think this internal like reflection and things, which almost sounds counterindicative to what I just said. I think you have to understand it to put it in one side. It happened, it's real. how you feel about it is real. What it means is you don't have to let all that emotional feeling and belief system you have remain that way. You can choose to move away from it. I know it exists and accept it, and that's fine. You can't change the past. Somebody
Yeah,
once said to me, peace is the ability to realize the past will not change, which I quite
yeah,
like. Um, so I think there's a self-realization piece of, right, okay, I understand who I am, how I'm showing up, and the why. And then the actualization piece is going, so what? Now I
yeah,
want to try this new stuff. And if I fail, I fail.
yeah.
It's like,
I think of to put a couple of things together, I think of real eyes as in real eyes, our
okay,
eyes, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And rather than the trauma lens, right?
right,
Taking the trauma taking the trauma glasses off allows
right.
us to see the world in real, with our real eyes rather
Okay.
than,
Makes sense.
yeah. We don't hear a lot about beliefs in the trauma world.
No, and I think it might be missing. You know,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
it's missing. I know it's missing, which is
Missing.
I agree with you. That's why I'm drawing attention
Yeah.
to it because I don't think enough is taught about beliefs in the trauma world. I think we should be talking about it
And
more.
I think, yeah, the trauma world, like, things happen to us all the time, right? It's PTSD in veterans, foster care, adoption. The kids I deal with every day, my team deal with every day, are in this awful never land sometimes if I can't go home, but I don't know where I'm going yet and things. And there is no doubt that trauma happens to everybody in different ways, and trauma is not comparable, as we know. But at some point, do you cling to that? Or do you just think, you know what? I'm choosing to believe what I want to believe about who I am. And then start to choose what you believe. And from there, then you can make the moves forward and have faith in yourself. You know, the last year, and it takes, well, I'm 57, so it takes, I want people to get there quicker than I got there because I think it will make a difference. Last year, for the first time ever, I turned down the new big job offer, right? So more
Yeah,
money, bigger role, all the things. And I turned it down because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to stay where I was and do other things. And all through my life, when that next big things come up or the next, what you should do, because people think you should because it's more money or this, that, and the other, I've always done it. And for the first time in my life, it's like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to. And I was fine with it. And it was like, oh, that's fundamental shifting from where I was to here. And I love what I do for a living. It was all still in the foster care business, all the things, right? But I love the business I have. But it was really just super empowering to stand up and go, you know what, no, I'm okay, thank you. Really appreciate it. Very grateful to be asked, but no.
was that freedom about not having to prove yourself anymore?
Yeah. I'm worthy regardless of what the outside world says.
Yeah,
The internal sense. That was a rock I was talking about. If we can internally center on that rock of we are okay and fine, regardless of what happened to us previously and what the outside world says, we're okay, then it gets to be quite a peaceful place to be.
yeah. I was clicking away because I saw some quote that was relevant to what we're saying over
Okay.
the weekend, right? So, have you heard of this woman, Mel Robbins? Have you heard of
I
her?
do. I've been listening to a podcast like a crazy woman lately.
Is she
She's great.
is she the guy? Is she the guy? Is she the coach? Is she for Adam Peaty, the swimmer? Is that her?
Not
No.
sure.
Okay. No.
Not
Okay.
sure.
So Adam Peaty's a British
Yeah.
swimmer, but I believe her. It might be a coach or not, but so. Um, this was a quote by a fellow adoptee, Vin Jarrett, down in Oz, and it says, "After a certain age," this is a quote from Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
After a certain age, right? That's highlighted. You are no longer the product of your environment or how you were raised. It becomes a personal choice to live the way you do. At,
100%.
yeah, at some point, blaming your past becomes a distraction from the future. Healing is your responsibility. Growth is your decision. You either take ownership of your life or become a prisoner to excuses. The truth is, no one is coming to save you. It's on you to become the person you were never shown to be.
There you go. And I hadn't heard that before, but I'll go and find it and listen to it now. But
Yeah,
100%. And I think, my change and all that, Tracy Goss was the first person that was kind of like, oi, knock it
yeah,
off, basically. You can't. And then, I've done lots of work about leadership and growth. I've been leading teams since I was about 23 years old, and if I am emotionally reactive to certain things as a leader, if you get to a professional sense as a leader, that's not good. It's not good for the people who come to me and then suddenly get a reaction that's inconsistent with how I normally am because it's triggering for me. So you've got to get out the drama triangle of victim and persecutor and rescuer and just be an adult. I mean, it's
yeah.
absolutely right. I'm going to look for that podcast now. I've not heard that one.
Yeah. This is a quote, and I don't know where it came from,
Yeah, go.
but it starts at the top. It says after a certain age, and I just thought, well, like I don't think it's an age thing at all. I think it's a choice thing, and most of us aren't
Mine.
choosing what we think, feel, do most of the time, right?
Right.
It's our conditioning
Yes.
that is choosing. But
Yeah.
I didn't hear that till I was 40.
Right.
Right, so I've got a couple of years. I've got a couple of years
Yeah.
on you, like at 59. I didn't realize I didn't hear that till I was 40. But until we hear it,
Yeah.
we don't have a choice. But the idea that it's a choice, it's an age thing. Well, what age is there?
Yeah. Uh,
It's not a choice. It's not an age thing.
it's a knowledge thing.
It's a knowledge thing. It's a
Yeah. And I
seeing
think,
thing. It's
yeah,
an in the moment thing.
and it's almost like when Tracy did that to me, I was really upset. I went drinking at lunchtime with the boys. But it was that moment of, you know what, screw this, she's right. She's right. So why am I falling back into default mindsets? And unless you can unpick the default mindset, it's almost like that is your go-to. You're not even considering why you're responding the way you are. You're just doing it. And
With
you've got to, that's a seeing, I think, for me. Like I'm now seeing almost quite an out of body experience, but I'm seeing how I'm showing up and I'm understanding why I'm showing up that way. And I'm going to choose to be different.
in a way, it is an out of body experience because we're looking at ourselves with new eyes, right?
Right. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I didn't mean it like, the out of body, I'm dying experience.
No,
But to take a step away and examine this person, there's a book, The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer.
yeah.
And he writes, there's one, I mean, I've read it several times, which is unusual for me. I mean, I really like it, but there's a piece in it where he says, when somebody is and I found this so useful as a human and as a leader, but when somebody is reacting in a certain way in front of you, you just need to step back and like literally sit in the rocking chair, he describes it, in your mind, and just watch what, I don't know why that came up, just watch what's going on. Um, and then you'll just see it more clearly. You don't have to emotionally engage in what people are bringing you. You can just take a step back and just sit in the rocking chair and kind of watch it. And there's almost a way you can do that with yourself and just watch how you're responding and watch how you're showing up. And if you don't like it, then you have a choice to change it.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I'm not saying don't do it without
Yeah.
help or anything else. I'm not, you don't wake up one day and go, oh, I've changed.
Yeah.
It's work and it's a process.
Yeah. I mean, how do you talked about therapy and coaching as well a little while ago, and most of the time what we were talking about in the first 20 minutes or so of this call is coaching stuff rather than therapy stuff. So
Right.
how do those two how do those two things sit together or differentiate from one another?
Okay, so I used to have a life coaching practice back in the day, right? In the UK, so when I left, that was the job I left. Um, and what I realized in that, if people were still being very informed by their past, you almost couldn't move forward. So then I went back to school and did counseling training because I think there's a counseling bit to now I'm okay. And then there's a coaching bit to how you can move past it. However, I think it's more complicated than that. I think you can be okay at this and be coached in that, and not okay here. So that prevents the coaching. So it's almost a storied impact. So if you're a runner, for instance, somebody might have told you you can't run fast, and coaching and physical coaching and mental coaching will get you past that. But that doesn't necessarily, then you're a great runner, but that doesn't necessarily solve the fact I still believe I'm stupid, for instance. That's another piece of work to do. It's not the whole person gets to level set and then the whole person can move on. It's very storied, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's my experience. I had a business coach and she got me to the point where not that I was running fast, but that
Yeah.
I had a good year in business and that didn't do it for me. And therefore there was something else
Yeah.
worth kind of digging, uh,
Yeah.
digging around. Yeah.
The onion layers they talk about and everything. But I think what happens sometimes with therapy, and I think th- there's a generational thing. I was talking about it with a really good friend yesterday. You can't navel gaze forever, right? I think there's a lot of, everybody's a bloody therapist, aren't they? Like TikTok and all these things, and they're not trained therapists. And they're encouraging what we're seeing is in the generation of kind of between 20 and 35-ish, an encouragement of, well, if you've had trauma with somebody, you never need to speak to that person again. And yet, no, 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 you, we need to back up a bit from that. And there seems to be this, oh, well, you break it and you go kind of thing. And that's not healing. It's not necessarily the best thing. And it's breaking familial relationships. And we're seeing there's a lot of that here in the States. I mean, we are the land of therapy, right? So there's a lot of that here in the States.
Even in
Uh,
Texas,
mhm.
it's not quite as loopy as California.
We're not quite as loopy as California now in that regard, but we do
Sorry,
have,
Californians,
yeah, I
I'm
know.
joshing slightly.
But we do have, a lot of therapeutic interventions, which is good and healthy. But sometimes I think, they want to keep people stuck. And therapy is meant to help us learn and move forward. It's not meant to keep us in therapy for 27 years. We're meant to learn from it, grow and move, not continually, as a navel gazing. We have to live.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
don't want to keep us stuck though. They think we are stuck because they think they're stuck, surely.
well, I don't know. And sometimes I really question that because there's some excellent therapists around. I've got one that I still call on a basis when I need her. I'm like, hey, this happened. Can we have a chat? And she's awesome, but she's very much like, so we're going to do this, 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 and here's your actions. And I'm like, all right. She's very directional, as opposed to kind of just circling and circling and circling. And I know we have to get down and deep, but sometimes you can do that over years in spits and spots and still be running a life. It doesn't hold you. And what I'm seeing especially here, that kind of age, you could be just being held in almost this cycle and not being able to break through and have their self-actualized life, their life that they can believe in themselves with. And I think that's really sad.
Yeah, me too. What you talked about kind of breaking off relationships and that, and you talked about that not being very healing. I think is what you said. What strikes me is that the idea of breaking off things is in itself disempowering because you're you're reiterating or reinforcing the idea that somebody outside you can make you feel a certain way, and
Correct.
that is just totally and utterly disempowering, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you solve the problem, or agree to disagree, or whatever that needs to be, or realize that regardless of how that human is, you're okay. It's and running away doesn't solve that. It doesn't solve anything. It's conflict avoidant.
Yeah,
We don't get to a true solution, a true growth. And I do think sometimes people need breaks from each other. That's not my suggestion. I think if you're in a relationship that's violent, you need to stop that. There's certain caveats. But if we look at the generalization of, familial breakups, things like that, it's often not the right thing to do because to your point, then you've not fixed that. You've not learned anything. The person who was you believe has been, the wrong person, they've not learned anything to change their behaviors either. And then you should be in a point where, you know what, your behaviors and that's fine. I'm okay anyway, to your point, because that for me is really that then that's the rock you stand on.
yeah.
I know. It's hard though.
It's hard. I'm thinking back of a recent conversation with some friends, and they, it wasn't a trauma conversation. It was an exam conversation. But this person hadn't done as well as they thought
Yeah.
they were going to do in the exams, and we were told when we arrived at the house that that we it wasn't to be talked about. And I just thought, she's rolling her eyes, listeners.
I was
I,
about to say so.
I just thought you're making this, you're giving this thing more power
Right.
by saying that it's not to be talked about. And I just and it went it got to me about shame and
Right.
not
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
adoption. But this was shame at exam results, not shame at being adopted. But the idea that, well, we're not going to talk about the thing because um, that's brush it under the carpet. And actually, 18 months on after this exam result happened, I can still see how it's not resolved within
So
in the
and
kid.
and for me, it's kind of like, yes, we wanted to do better, but it's kind of so what they've just escalated that whole issue and made it into something that may create a lifelong barrier to learning because you didn't do as well, so therefore you're failing, so therefore you're not going to do it again. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah, why is I reckon supposedly I don't keep tissues and things in my office at work. So when people come in, they're upset or they're angry or they're crying, they don't get tissues from me because, and they all know this. This is not a hidden thing. So I don't want to signal to you that you cannot be upset and let your feelings out. Do you? I'm okay. You do you, and let's work through this together. And that situation to me is like, oh, we can't talk about it because they'll be upset and they're very sad or they're very, well, so what? Like, let them. As the new book is, right? The new trendy book that's out at the moment. Like,
That's the what's it book by Mel Robbins, is that Let Them.
yeah, yes, and but why are we so averse to being in deep emotion with people that need to have that conversation and let that out and then put it in, give it the importance it deserves, which most of the time, frankly, is not that important. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you've just raised the shame level of, of somebody. You've just raised it in that particular instance of this is now shameful and awful and it must not be discussed. You are a bad person because it happened. I mean, it's just silly. Let's knock it off.
Yeah. So what?
Am I allowed to say things like that on your night on your night's podcast? I'm like, come on, people.
Yeah, say whatever you want. Yeah. And I don't edit it either. Listeners, if you ever wondered, does Simon
Uh-oh.
edit the podcast? No, he doesn't. No. Um, the It's pretty obvious actually to most people listening. I hope so. Uh, what I talked about the trauma glasses on, having our trauma glasses on earlier on, right?
Yeah.
Um, but we don't see it. What is it that stops us seeing that we've got our trauma lens on?
Because we want to avoid it. My belief is. Okay. My personal belief is that we don't want to face it because to face it will cause us hurt and harm. And people can't see through the other side of it, or they simply don't know they're wearing them anyway. And a lot of people just they don't realize how they're showing up or why they're showing up,
Yeah,
or why they're showing up in certain ways. And it takes people in your life to either point it out to you and say, so what? Or, some therapeutic work that says, okay, so, perhaps you have a violent reaction to something that it was minimized. And you're like, why on earth? So you're either going to think about that yourself or somebody in your life is going to say, what is going on with that? But I think a lot of people, they just don't want to do the self-examination work. It's hard. And you don't know what's going to come next. You don't know what's going to come out of the closet. People have got things buttoned down in tight, locked up, padlocked boxes in their brains, and feelings that I think they're scared sometimes of what it's going to release. And on the flip side, some people don't need to examine it and are doing just fine.
yeah,
But again, though, where are you with that in your head? So I think overall, it's what stops most people doing most things, and that's fear.
yeah. Something I'm seeing recently, I'm thinking about. There's the young quote, isn't there? I go to all the time. Until we make the subconscious conscious, it will rule our life,
Yeah,
and we'll call it fate. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
that's kind of where we're at here.
Yeah, it's all the iceberg stuff, isn't it?
All the iceberg stuff.
Yeah.
So I've got this idea that subconscious trauma is actually one and actually the same as pre-verbal. Pre-verbal and subconscious
Okay.
are the same thing. That's why
Yeah.
we haven't got words for it.
Right.
It's subconscious because we haven't got words for it,
Yeah.
and so it's pre-verbal. That's why
Right.
we haven't
By
got
default.
words for it
Yeah.
by default. Yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I think yeah, that's interesting. And it takes time to unpick it. So Tracy Gard, she's, as I say, passed away now. She wrote a book called The Last Word on Power, which is a fascinating read and interesting in and of itself. But she talks about just unpicking like who are we as a general rule, right? So, for instance, in a professional and life context, actually, my go-to was I solve problems. My value comes from my ability to solve problems. Okay. So what happens if there's not a problem to solve? And the answer to that is you create one. But when you can see my default, and it's because I don't feel worthy, it's, all the things that drive humans, right? I'm not worthy enough if I'm not solving problems. Nobody's going to want me if I'm not solving problems. Where's my value? All that. And it takes a while to get to that. So, I mean, but if you can see that and then say, okay, by solving all the problems, I'm not allowing other people to learn how to solve problems. I'm creating codependency. You're creating a lot of other things around that. So, what would happen if a problem arises and I go, I'm not doing it? I am, and I have to say that out loud, but I am choosing not to be the meat in the sandwich of a relationship with, probably I'm remarried, so with stepchildren and new husbands. I'm choosing not to be the negotiator. I'm not going to solve the problem. Y'all get to solve it. Okay? Or at work, I can see what the answer should be, but I'm not going to solve it. Like on you go. And then in that time, I can choose to do something else, a look to the future, value added stuff, whatever it happens to be. But I stop defaulting to that's the issue, that's who I am. And if you can get to the point when you can see that and how you show up consistently, it doesn't, and the underneath of it is normally with women, there's a lot of I'm not worthy, no, don't have a value add, this is all I'm fit for, blah, blah, blah. And I know that afflicts men as well, but I've spoken to lots of groups of women about this. We have to put that down. And there's the self-actualization piece. I am worthy to stand on this planet today if I never solved another problem in my life. So what? It's kind of back to that really. And if I chose to do something different, but I'm still okay. So don't know
Yeah,
if that helps kind of explain how you get there, because it's a bit cerebral until you kind of can give a proper example. Some people want to be unique the whole time. That was another one that came up. If they're not special, unique, and different, they're not worthy.
yeah. When I'd realized that this business success thing hadn't made me happy, I went looking for, okay, so what will,
What will?
what will? And we spent a week looking at the fact, looking for our worth, right? And these
Yeah,
weren't other, I wasn't with other adoptees. And it seems to me, so none of them thought they were good enough either,
right.
right? So clearly, adoptees, adopted people, we don't have the monopoly on low self-worth.
We don't. We perhaps have arguably um, a better reason. If that's a good, 'cause I say trauma's not comparable, but there's a solid reason there we can blame, right, on why we feel this way, which almost is not is even worse, right? Because it's like, well, my parents didn't want me and I was passed around in foster care, so therefore this is what happens. And it's like, no, but it doesn't have to. But we almost have a really good excuse for doing it.
Yeah, I say we've got incontrovertible evidence,
There you go. Exactly right. Much better words, yes.
or
Incontrovertible evidence, we do.
or metaphorically, I think our beliefs have got they're reinforced. It's reinforced concrete. It's not just run of the mill
Right.
concrete.
Yeah, no, we've got
It's got this.
we own this. Yeah,
We
you're
own
right.
this, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
until we don't.
Up until we make a choice.
This is a fascinating one, right? Don't we have to
Yeah.
see there is a choice first before we make it?
All day, every day. But and I think the other thing for me is if people start getting a bit like twitchy, like I thought being a big businessman, I'd be all happy then, right? Got this external.
Yeah,
I thought being in a great marriage to a wonderful person, I'd be happy. Not their problem to make you happy. So there's bits of that. So if you start feeling like it's almost unresolved, it can lead to depression, which is heartbreaking, those things. Then if you start seeking, okay, what can I change about me? If you start getting curious about change and steps to change and what is holding me back, and start to really have grace with yourself and forgive yourself for feeling that way all those years, that's fine. But then get curious about the person you really are without anybody else around,
yeah,
without anybody else being obligated to be the people that make you happy or the thing that makes you happy. Because things and people can enrich and all those things. But I really believe that only that core self-belief, not to sound arrogant or braggy or look, I'm fucking awesome, none of that, right? But just to really be centered and you're okay and you deserve to be here, and that's super important to me because the depression that we have. I mean, I'm going to go back to my husband's a veteran, and so the suicide rates in veterans that come off missions and don't have a goal anymore and a mission anymore, and then think, the PTSD of what's happened, but then think, well, what have I got left to give now? Where I've got nothing now. You do. They had them, but unless you can do that, and it's always been external, that's how it breaks my heart. And the veterans break my heart a lot. We live in San Antonio's Military City, USA, by the way. Um, but it's just so sad because everything has been from external and been driven externally, and then their own value dissipates. Sorry, slightly off topic from the question there, but it's
no.
I don't know,
So
'cause
so what's the difference that makes the difference then?
what makes the difference in
In seeing stuff or not seeing it.
because then you get a choice. Because then you can, if you see it, you can decide. And people might make a choice to say, I'm quite happy being like in this state and I don't want to be anymore and I just want to get through life. If that's what you want, that's okay.
But there's a lot of people telling us that we haven't got a choice, right? Like
Loads of people.
I know
It's not up to
uh,
them.
very serious, very leading therapists within the adoption space who say there is no such thing as wholeness. All we've got is coping measure. All we've got is coping measures. And I just think I don't
Oh,
want a
that's
therapist.
insulting.
Yeah,
That's insulting, frankly.
but
Sorry to all the literate people out there, but that's insulting.
we're bowing to their knowledge though, because they're the ones that are supposedly
With the
know
white
more than
coats.
us. What if they don't? Like it's a herd. The metaphor that's coming to me is a herd. I've been thinking about this a lot recently.
Okay.
There's a herd of people, like
Mhm.
there's a herd of sheep, right? But there's always a leader. So we're all, well, we're sheep or we're lemmings
Yeah,
following,
sheeple.
yeah, following the wrong person, right? Following a leader who says the best that we can do is cope, that we
I
can't.
mean,
Yeah,
that's bloody miserable, right? I mean, and I and I don't believe it. So there's that. I think it depends where you are. Let's go back to this spectrum. If you can be life coached, if everything's kind of okay, but you need counselling to get to the rest. So there's people that suffer really sadly from like clinical depression, mental health illnesses, that kind of thing, which I'm not talking about people that need that kind of help. I mean, keep getting the help for heaven's sake.
yeah,
Don't, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people that fall into the middle, right? The general category of populace, adoptees, general people, whichever. I mean, what right has anybody else got to say to me, I'm sorry, Angela, all you'll be able to do through your life is cope? I mean, good God, how sad is that? I say the general populace, not people with, diagnosed mental health issues and everything. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our general group of sheeple who believe like, well, they've got a PhD, so therefore they know shit, right?
yeah,
Having a PhD doesn't mean that what I think about leadership is the be all and end all in the universe. And it doesn't mean that counselors always know. And God, I'm going to say this out loud. I think some counselors are on a bit of a power trip and they quite like the fact that they are superior to these poor people who all they can ever do in life is cope. I think that's awful.
yeah.
Probably get in trouble for that, but I think that's awful.
No, me too. That's why I brought it up, right? We've got to question, like, you've got to be open. You
Yeah,
said curious, you said
curious,
curious,
yes.
curious.
Yeah,
Like,
but be curious. There's a lot out there that, the reading choices you make, the podcasts you listen to, doom scrolling. It's about doom scrolling. I mean, I won't do it. I'm just like, I I need to know what's going on in the world, and I do at a level that I have some say and control and thoughts about. But I'm not gonna doom scroll my life away because it's horrible and it puts you in frames of mindsets that then, what is the point kind of deal. And that's a choice to make. It's an easy choice. You either keep doing it or you don't.
I want to take you back to the insight moment where Tracy Goss says, "So what?" Right? She says, "So what?" to you, but
Yeah,
your reaction to that initially was to go drinking with the boys
I was
because
devastated.
you were devastated. So
Yeah.
when did the devastation end and the shift to the more empowered approach
Okay, I think I
kick in?
went through a grief cycle basically because in my mind, so I was already a CEO of another non-profit, right? I've gone back to school, but I've moved countries. I'm successful. And so there was a kind of dismantling of not just my childhood, but also up to that point. So there was that. So in the moment, and we're in the basement of a hotel in New York, I'm tell you. and in tears. At lunchtime, like some of the guys in the class, so they're not drinking. And in the moments directly after that, I went back to my hotel room and thought, I've got three choices. I can either jump off the bloody building, literally, and get on a plane and go home, or I can get back in that room. And the curiosity drove me to go back to the room. There's something desire to really try and understand what that was about because I knew the woman. She's, so why would she say that? And what am I missing? Drove me back to the room. Um, so I think so that was we did that. It would have been the week before Thanksgiving, so mid-November actually. Oh no, week after first week in December. So we did a week there. We were going back for a week in January. And I literally hit a grief cycle in the middle of accepting that actually there's truth in what she says. And there was more to that week. That was like 2 days into a 5-day work week. There's truth in what she says and all the things. And then go through, well, I'm really sad and I feel very sorry for myself. And now I'm angry. And I'm thinking, okay, why am I angry? Because I believed in this and it is stopping me. What am I going to do about it? And by the time I went back in January, I'd signed up for a master's. So probably about 4 weeks. This grief cycle is generally 6 to 8 initial phase, but probably about 4 weeks. And I just thought, you know what? She's right. And if I fail, so what? If I fail my master's, which I did at the University of Cumbria, by the way, but on online, all that, so what? But people told me growing up I was stupid. My adopted mother told me growing up I was stupid and I would never amount to anything and I was stupid. And that was the voice in my head. Who do I think I am to show off by going back to school to get this and do that and be this or be that, whichever? Because I was stupid. And my own mother didn't fucking want me. So, you got nothing down for you. You should be so grateful we adopted you, all those things. And you will stay in this box that my adopted mother determined that somebody of my standing, where I came from, should remain in this box.
Yeah.
And Tracy ripped the lid off the box. And there've been steps towards it. I had a good job. I had, high functioning second marriage. The kids are great. There'd all been steps that way, but I still didn't believe it, despite the evidence.
Yeah. So it was, to a certain extent, it was anger that broke you out of the box.
Yeah. There's curiosity to go back in the room. And then the grief cycle of being angry, she could say that to me, and then being angry about all these other people have said this to me too. Like, forgive me, but like, it's like, screw the lot of you. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm very stubborn. I am very stubborn. And once I get my eyes fixed on something, it's generally going to happen because come hell or high water, I'm stubborn. And it's a survival mechanism, and I know that. Okay. So, but it can be helpful in other ways. And so I think that's what drove me to be like, and then it was a release of it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. The last piece of it was, so if I fail and it costs me X amount of dollars, pounds to do this work and I fail it, well, I've paid for it. It is what it is. And the release of being able to be like, I'm going to do it anyway was huge for me. It's like turning that big job down and then like starting the PhD. I didn't think I could do a PhD. I had no bloody idea what I was doing. And then you write a 300-page dissertation on the back end of it. It's like, yeah, no, I don't think this is going to go well. And I passed the highest GPA level there is and all the rest of it. But I didn't think I could, but I did it anyway. And there's something in that attitude that shifted. Even if you don't actually think, I'm going to try this. What if I fail? What if you fail? So what? Do something else.
Yeah. And how did or did do it?
My accent's got more British through this podcast. You know that, right? I can
Okay.
feel the Americans growing out.
She's on she's on the wrong side of the pond, listeners.
Well, I've been
But
swimming
she's
across while we've been on the
yeah.
podcast.
But in the UK, she's on the wrong side of the Pennines, right? She's
Oi,
northwest.
oi.
I'm northeast.
Stop it.
Um, to what extent did doing it anyway play into your search for your birth mother?
I think it gave me freedom and the belief in myself to know if I didn't find out the truth, that I'd still be okay. I think that's the biggest thing about it. So and actually, so let's talk about that a little bit. So my son, who is now 31, in January 2023, said to me, Mom, have we really got no medical records? And that's how it all started again. And so, well, we don't, because I've traced my mom before and they told me there were no birth records and da 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 da. So he said, oh, all right. I said, look, I'll try again. So I tried again, and lo and behold, through all the legal systems and all the things, and I had to have somebody here that would help me. So, I wasn't going to go schizo on somebody in the UK. So I had to have a middle person. The records did exist, and all of them existed. And I was told at 21 they did not. And that's I'm going to use a legal, that's cruel and unusual torture. Why on earth did somebody in their infinite wisdom in a little office in social services think I should not be the recipient of my own story? I mean, that's awful. So I grew up, continued to age and, married all the things, believing still what my adopted mother had told me. Um, so I got the records in December 2023. I found out my father's name for the first time. There's letters there from my grandmother, maternal grandmother to social services, my mother to social services, um, all kinds of things, right? So, but that only took me to when I was 2 months old. So again, different, too long to go into, but I've been told a whole different story. At 2 months old, my mother handed me to social services out of a mother and baby's home because she couldn't, I mean, poverty's a thing, right? She couldn't look after me. And her mother, my grandmother, was like, I'm not having another child in this home. And she had all her reasons for doing that. She'd had brothers, she's had kids, and one of her children was severely mentally ill. And my mother already had my half sister in the house who was only 18 months old. So a totally different lens.
Yeah.
And then I went into a group children's home at 3. So then I had this 2 month to 3 year gap. Oh, and I did find out medical information as well. So I got that for my son. My children are both very blessed where there's a genetic disorder in the family, they don't have it. And if they did have it, my son would not have lived past 30. So again, things that
Yeah.
you should have known and didn't know. And then the other thing then was like, where was I between 2 months and 3? And my adopted mother had always told me, oh, you bounced around everywhere. You were so naughty. Nobody knew what to do with you. Blah, 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 blah. Not true. As it turns out, was in the same foster placement between 2 months old and 3 years old and taken from there to the children's home, which explains some of why I'm not. Now, those first 3 years of a child's life, in utero now they're saying, and first 3 years of a child's life, are so fundamental, but when you believe a story you've been told versus what happened, then it's that push pull, right? Um, and that's been wonderful. I should never have been able to find out who these foster family were, by the way, place in Manchester, that helped me with that, which is called, I think it's called, oh God, caring adoption or something. I have to find out. I'm so sorry for the people there because they were so helpful. But I found my foster sister. I met her in October in the UK, and she's coming to San Antonio in February. And I lived with her for the first 3 years of my life. I'm 57 now. She's 60. So 54 years later for me, 57 years later for her, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. I feel bad for my husband because she's quite like me and he's going to have to put up with two of us while she's here.
Yeah.
But but they but other people decided that I shouldn't know my story. And that's not right. It's not it. I fundamentally believe that's not right. Because if we don't know really what happened, how can we take trauma lens glasses off? How do we understand who we truly are without the facts of our lives behind us?
Indeed.
Indeed.
That
So
feels like a good place to bring it in, Angie.
I think so. And
Thank
right
you,
on
Angie.
time too. Look at you go.
Yeah. Good on you. Thanks, Angie, and thank you, listeners. We'll speak to you again very soon. Take care. Bye bye.